Welcome to Salesforce Data Modeling Masterclass. So today the idea is basically to understand the data model of Salesforce, how data is captured, is tracked within Salesforce CRM, within Salesforce database, how we are tracking information. At a high level, you folks already know that the data tables will be managed in form of objects. Within the objects, there can be fields in order to track information. For example, if policy is a data table, within policy, if you want to track information related to policy name, the contact person for which policy is created, the start date of the policy, end date of the policy, the status of the policy, so on and so forth, those attributes will be captured in the form of fields. And then the rows. Example, Pratik wants to purchase life insurance policy from SG Insurance. So that one row will form what? Will form the record on a particular object. Then in the object manager, you're going to find the list of all the objects, whether standard or custom. So standard is anything that is available out of the box. Custom, which is created by the admins, the developers, in order to meet the requirements of the business. Now, how would you differentiate whether an object is standard or custom? So there are two ways to basically identify whether the object is standard or custom. You can see the type is mentioned already in one of the columns. So standard object or custom object. And also by looking at the API name is the developer name. If there is an annotation __ C stands for custom, that means it's a custom object. Otherwise for standard will not have the annotation __ C. In the home tab in setup, so setup page is where the configuration customization happens. In the home tab, there's a quick find box where you can search for the setting. You just type in the keyword and system will show all the relevant searches. Left hand side, top left, is the app launcher. What's an app launcher? So app launcher is the place from where you can launch the applications, standard or custom. You click on view all to view all the applications that you have access to. So certain applications are pre-built, which are standard applications. And certain applications that you build on your own would be the custom applications that you can, see in the app launcher when you click view all. Now, what is an application? So an application is basically a collection of tabs. Tabs is nothing but a visual representation of the object, the data table. For example, sales application contains a couple of tabs which are relevant for the people from the sales department. Similarly, there is a service application, marketing application, community application, etc. And depending on your needs, you can create your own custom application and provide access to the relevant folks in Salesforce. For example, in the context of SG Insurance Company, who's now planning to transition to Salesforce, current state, they are managing their data in form of Excel spreadsheets. And as their Salesforce administrator, you're helping them with the migration process. So what they would want is that, account and contact being the standard data tables available out of the box. There's no need for you to create those data tables, right? But for policy is not a standard data table, not a standard object. So what you're going to do as the appointed Salesforce admin is you're going to help the business by creating an object, a custom data table called policy. Then we are going to create a tab for it. Why? Because visually, if we want to present that object in the application, in any of the application, a tab needs to be created for it. And then finally, an insurance management app, a custom app will be created so that everyone from the insurance department have access to all the key data tables. They don't have to, they don't have to look, in the system for information, as in they don't have to search for account contacts by navigating to app launcher, basically. So this is the hands-on that we are going to complete today. Now it's up to you if you want to follow along, please do. Else, you can just observe how I am creating the object, the tab, and the insurance management application, and then complete these steps post the session. So I'm hoping all of you have logged in to your masterclass developer orgs. If yes, we'll navigate to Salesforce setup. So there's a gear icon. If you click on it, you can navigate to the setup page. So click on setup. And now we'll navigate to object manager in order to create a custom object called policy. Now right inside, there is a create button. We'll click on it and then we'll click custom object. Now this is what the creation page of a new custom data table object looks like. We specify the label name. So the label name is what is presented to the end user. In this case, it is what? It is policy. Plural label would be policies because there can be multiple policies in the system, right? We can sell multiple policies. Object name is pre-populated based on the label name. So object name is the API name. An optional description can be added to specify the intended use of this object, that, hey, this object will be used for storing policy information of the contact person. And then we specify the first column information, because in order to create a data table, first column information is important. You cannot create a data table without the first column. So the record name would be the first column that we are creating. You can specify policy name or policy number. Again, depending on the requirements of the business, the first column would be created. Since the requirement stated is we will specify policy number as the first column, instead of name, I'll backspace and I'll type in number. Now, since policy number is numeric, the data type, the type of data that I'm planning to store on this particular column, this particular field would be auto number instead of text. So auto number means automatically generated number. For example, the first policy record created in the system would be PO001 or 0001. The second record will be PO002. And so on and so forth. Now, since we have specified auto number, the system is asking, hey, what should be the display format of this, automatically generated number? So the display format would be PO hyphen curly brackets 000 and curly brackets closed. This is the format, display format of the auto number.
Quick question. Is it okay to ask now?
Yeah, good.
Does that 4 zeros indicates only 4 digits
Four
will be
digits.
the maximum, or
Yep.
can we have more than that?
If you want to have more than that, just add the zeros.
Okay, so that restricts the number of
The
record.
automatic number, yep.
One more question. What is the maximum numbers that we can put on?
Maximum numbers, it's not yet defined. You can just put in 4, 5, 6.
Okay.
So now another question. Under plural label, I do get another like option, and it says gender, and it's also like mandatory. I'm not sure because my native language is Spanish, although I change it to English. However, I do get a gender field.
Starting number would be 1. So the first record would be PO0001. A couple of optional features, optional as in it's up to you if you want to enable it right now or at a later point of time. Allow reports means on policy, if you want to run reports, you have to enable this particular feature. So let's enable this. If you want to track activities on policy, any sort of activities, again, this particular checkbox should be true. If you want to track history of values, as in current state, let's suppose the status of the policy is draft, and tomorrow someone moves it to the active status. If you want to track those sort of history changes on the field values, history tracking should be enabled. So let's enable it. If you want users to collaborate on policy record, the last option, which is allow in chatter group, should be enabled. So these are optional features, up to the business if they want to enable these features or not. So everyone, please enable all the optional features.
Examples for activities, Rona?
Activities, any sort of task. So task is again an object in Salesforce. So if you're tracking a to-do task against a particular record, that becomes an activity.
And what does it mean allowing chatter groups?
Chatter groups, chatter is again a collaboration tool. So if you want to collaborate on policy records, you have to enable this feature. Amanda, I'm not pretty sure why do you see this gender field? Could be because of the language. Just keep it as it is and move to the next steps.
Got it,
Can you give
thanks.
me an example for the track field history, please, Sona?
Track field history, I just mentioned, if the status of the policy today is draft and tomorrow someone moves it to the active status, the field value change is tracked in the form of field history.
So it gonna tell us the username as well who did the changing?
It does.
Oh, okay, good. Okay.
Now, object
Thank you.
classification is not related to admin. Keep the settings as it is. It's used for integration purpose. Deployment status. Deployment status, if as an admin, you are working on the data table, configuring the fields, etc., you can keep the deployment status in development. Now, what does it mean? It means that the end user will not be able to create records of this particular object. They will not be able to access this particular data table. Only when the deployment status is deployed, this particular object records can be created by the end users. So we'll keep it deployed because it's just us using the system. But in a real world, you can keep it in development, and then after making all the configuration level changes, you can move it to the deployed status. Search status means, do you want the users to search for the record via the global search bar? So if you remember yesterday, I told you about this global search bar where you can just type in the keyword and search for any records, right? So this particular setting, if it is enabled on the object, will allow you to search for the object records, policy records. Other optional features, for example, notes, any sort of notes that you would like to, add, or attachments that you would like to add to policy, you can enable this again. And the last one refers to launching of the tab wizard. So why is it important to create a tab? Because a visual representation is required in order to add it to the application of your choice. For the end user to see the object, a tab needs to be created for the custom object. So you can straight away launch the tab wizard on creation page, or you can navigate to the home tab, type in tab, and then create a custom tab for this particular object. So it's up to you. So ensure that the last checkbox is true, launch new custom tab wizard, and hit the save button.
Sona, just one second. Uh, in the uh, in the optional features, we have enable licensing. What is that?
Enable licensing is disabled. It's only for a couple of objects which are part of managed package.
Okay. Okay. And one more thing, there is a context sensitive help setting. Okay. Can you just put some light on that?
So it's related to help and training window, again, not relevant.
Okay.
So now just one question on the object classification. What is the purpose of that?
This is used for integration purpose. If you're allowing bulk API, streaming API access, again, the object records can, can be used in integration. So again, platform development related, not admin related.
Okay.
Yeah, so now I have a question. So first we created an object, so that is a table, and then directly we created a record, that is row items, like as per in comparison with Excel. So how about fields? I mean,
We'll create the fields. It's
Okay.
just that when you're creating the object, first column,
Okay.
information needs to be specified. Otherwise, you cannot create the table, the data table, the object.
Okay, so first object, then records, and then fields.
First object, then fields, and then you can create records on it.
So now I have a question. So if it happens that we want to put something on the object descriptions, what do you suggest that we put? Define the object or put what it does?
Intended use of the object.
Okay.
Click the save button and ensure that this option launch new custom tab wizard is selected. Now, after saving the object, this is the tab wizard where you define the tab setting, as in the visibility of the object. So object is selected by default, the custom object policy. Tab style is just the visual representation of the tab. So you can click on this magnifier, the search, and select any of the tab style representation that makes sense to you. Again, description, as part of best practices, we always specify the description, the intended use of the tab, but again, it's optional. And move to the next step, step 2. Step 2 is where we specify security, whether we would want this particular tab, object tab as in policy, to be visible by all the users in the system, or we want to restrict the visibility. So current state, we will keep the setting as it is, and we'll move on to the last step. More on this in data security session. What is tab visibility? How does it control the visibility of the tab? So move to step 3, scroll to the bottom, and click the next button. So step 3 is where the system is asking whether we want policy tab to be included in all the applications. Should we include it in all the applications, or would it make sense if we include it only in the insurance management tab? So what we'll do is we'll deselect this particular checkbox. We'll remove it from all the applications and click save. So this is the custom object, the custom data table called policy that you have created. You can see the API name has an annotation underscore C. C stands for custom. Custom is also checked, and the optional features that you've enabled is also visible in the details part. You can always go back, change the settings. Now let's click on fields and relationship. The second option that you see below details, there is fields and relationship. Now, a couple of fields are created out of the box, as soon as we create the data table, what you would observe is a couple of fields are created by the system. Created by, last modified by, owner. What are these? These are called system audit fields. System audit fields which are used for auditing purpose. Tracking the changes as in who modified the record, who created the record, who owns the record. So the information related to these fields, the system automatically captures you. You don't have the ability to change the information on these particular fields. Now, if you want to create custom fields, custom attributes, example, on policy, it would make sense to have attributes like the start date of the policy, end date of the policy, status of policy, insurance coverage amount, etc. So there is a button called new that you can use to create those attributes. You can create as many attributes as possible. Now, before we get started with the creation of the attributes as in the fields, as in the columns on this data table, let's complete this particular hands-on. So the last part of this hands-on is to create an insurance management application and to add the relevant tabs, account, contact, and policy. Now, in order to do so, what we are going to do is, again, in the setup page, we are going to click on the home tab. And in the quick find box, we are going to type in App Manager. So just type in App Manager, the keyword, and click on App Manager. Now from here, you can not only create a new Lightning app. Lightning, why? Because we're working in the Lightning interface. You can also customize the existing ones, pre-built by Salesforce. Now, right inside where you see new Lightning app, we click on this button, new Lightning app, in order to create a custom application. And now we specify the details of the application. The application name is what? It's insurance management. Developer name, API name would auto-populate insurance_management. An optional description can be added. This is a dedicated application for insurance managers, the insurance agents. So description will specify the intended use of the application. Then in order to enhance the look and feel of the application that you're creating, the app branding can be customized. You can upload an image. You can change the color value, hex value. And this is how your application is going to look like. Now we move on to the next step by clicking next. Navigation and form factor. So this is what we discussed yesterday. Navigation, there are two types of navigation, standard and console-based navigation. Console-based navigation is where you can work on multiple records at once. Standard is where you can only work on one record. So in a dynamic, fast-paced environment, console-based navigation is preferable, but then again, it would depend on the requirements of the business. So we'll keep the selection as it is. Standard will be the navigation style. Supported form factors basically means, if Salesforce is accessed via the desktop or phone, do you want this particular application to be accessible? So if you want it to be accessible by both the form factors, you select desktop and phone. Then setup experiences, where you specify whether you'd like to access it via the setup or the service setup. As mentioned, since it's a developer edition org, you have access to both the setup, but in a real world, if let's suppose the client has only purchased Sales Cloud, you would only able to see this first option. App personalization setting would allow you to define whether the end users will have the ability to customize the navigation items, as in they can change the sequence of the tabs presented or not. So keep these settings as it is and move to the next step. Now, utility items are productivity tools. For example, if you want to give the end users the ability to access notes, directly from the record, Lightning app record page, you can add the utility items. So again, this is optional. Click next. And now the system is asking, hey, what all tabs, navigation items do you want to present in the application that you're creating? So the key objects, the tabs that you would like to include would be accounts. So you can either type in accounts, click on the accounts tab, and then add it to the selected item box by clicking this add button. The next tab is the contact tab. So type in contact, select the contact tab and add it to the list. And the last one is the policy. So policy, the plural label is policies. Click on it and add it to the selected item list. So the three important data tables are included in the insurance management application. Click next. And now, as part of security, data security, the system is asking whether we would want this application, to be made visible, accessible by all the users or only specific users in the system. So since we are the system administrators, let's ensure that we as system admins are able to see this particular app in a real world based on the requirements of the business. For example, hey, insurance management application should only be accessible by insurance management folks. You're going to add the relevant, profile users to this particular list. So current state, we'll type in system admin and we'll add our profile to the selected profile list so that we can see and access this particular application. And that's all. We click save and finish. The application is created and now you can search for it by navigating to the app launcher, top left, 9 dots, click on app launcher and type in insurance management. So I'm opening this in a new tab. And this is how a custom application is created where you can specify, what all tabs should be accessible by the users and which users in the system should have access to it. So this is the accounts data table with the account records, then the contact data table with contact records, and the policy data table, which is the policy object, the custom object that we've created in order to track policies. Now, right inside, there is a new button. If we click on it, what we'll see is the record creation page. But now, since there are no attributes, there is only one column, right, on the data table, which is policy number, which is automatically generated. So what would be the next step? The next step would be to create the columns, the fields on the object so that policy information can be tracked in Salesforce CRM. So we have created a custom object. Standard is something which is available out of the box. On standard object, there are standard fields. So let's also talk about standard fields. So standard fields are basically the columns of the data tables, which are pre-built, available. Now, please note only couple of aspects of the standard fields are customizable. You cannot, customize all the parameters of the standard field. For example, account name, account number, account owner. All these are standard fields which are built by Salesforce on the object, on the data table. What aspects can be customized? If it's a a picklist field. So picklist is again a type of field. Picklist means a list from which you can pick. You can add the values, remove the values, activate, deactivate the values, etc. Standard fields cannot be deleted. So account name is a standard field and there is no drop down right inside in order to delete the field. So standard fields cannot be deleted. Custom fields can be deleted. Now, in order to move forward, we have created the object. It's time for us to create fields as in the columns. Now, what are the relevant columns? First one is insurance type. Insurance type would be the column, the field via which we will track the insurance agent. The managers are going to track the type of the policy that the business is planning to sell. For example, if we are selling health insurance, the insurance type would be health. If it's motor vehicle, it should be motor vehicle or life or home. Subtype is again a bifurcation. Within health, which type of health insurance are we selling? Is it term plan? Is it unit link plan? If it is home, is it fire or theft? And so on and so forth. Status would help the business to track the status of the policy, whether current state, the status of the policy is in draft status, active status, whether it is expired, whether it is claimed by the owner of the policy, or whether the person has surrendered it. Then start date of the policy, surrender date of the policy will allow the business to capture when the policy, is enforced or when it is expiring. The insurance coverage amount, another field, will be used to track the coverage of the policy. How much coverage are we providing? And insurance period would be the validity of the insurance in months. So these are the couple of fields that we are going to create. So now let's move back to the setup page. Again, repeating the steps. You click on the gear icon, top right, click the setup page, navigate to the setup page. And now we'll navigate to Object Manager. Now in Object Manager, if I want to quickly search for the object, in the quick find box right inside, we can type in the name of the object. So as soon as you type in the keyword, the system is going to show you the relevant items. So policy is the object on which these fields, these columns needs to be created. So we'll navigate to policy. Left-hand side where you see label policy, please click on it. And now we'll click on fields and relationship in order to introduce these fields. Now where you see the new button, click on the new button in order to create the first field. So the first field is insurance type, the type of insurance that the business is planning to sell. Now the first step is where the system is asking that, hey, which data type or type of data would you like to store on this field? So there are a couple of standard data types available for selection. For example, if you want to capture the date, as in the start date, the relevant data type would be date field. If you're planning to capture time as well, the relevant email address of the customer, the data type of the field would be email. If you are planning to capture number, the relevant data type would be number. If you're planning to capture phone number of the person, mobile number of the person, the relevant data type would be phone. If you want to present, couple of values out of which one value can be selected, a list of values, and only one value can be picked, then you're creating a pick list. If you are giving the end user the ability to select multiple values out of the set of values that you're presenting, then it's a multi-select pick list. Multi-select means multiple selection can be made from a list of values. So on and so forth, system has given you the ability, the flexibility that, hey, please specify what type of data would you like to store on the field. And then you select the data type and then you start customizing that, hey, this should be the name of the field. These are the values that we'd like to present, so on and so forth. So the first field that we are creating is insurance type. And since there can be different types of insurance, motor vehicle, health, life, etc., the data type of this field should be pick list, a list from which one can pick the value. So select pick list as the data type and move to the next step by clicking next. Now, second step is where we define the label name, as in what will the end user see. So the field label is insurance type. And now there are two ways to define the values of this insurance type field. First is we can use a global pick list. Now, what is a global pick list? I'm going to explain it shortly. The second option is to enter the values manually with each value separated by a new line. So we'll select the second option. And now we'll manually define the values. So the first value is health. The second value is motor vehicle. The third value is life. And the last value is home. Now, a couple of optional settings that, hey, do you want to, present the values alphabetically? Do you want to use the first value as the default value? Do you want to restrict the pick list to the values defined, etc.? Again, optional. Description can be specified that, hey, this is the intended use of this field. Insurance type will be used, for specifying the type of insurance. Help text is a tooltip that will be presented on the screen. For example, on the record, there is a field, custom field that you've created, and you want to specify, hey, this is the purpose of this field. So there will be a help bubble. If the user hovers over the help bubble, he or she would be able to see the intended use, the purpose of the field. So move to the step 3 of creation. Step 3 again is related to security. So by now, I think you all would be able to observe that security plays a huge role in Salesforce. Security is a non-negotiable factor. So every time I'm trying to create something, system is asking, hey, please keep a check on security. Do you want this to be accessible by all or only a subset of users in the system? So current state, we are going to make this visible to all users in the system, but in a real world, you'll be very mindful that, hey, if this is the field that I'm creating and it is containing sensitive data, should I make this accessible? Again, business would specify, should this be accessible by all or only a subset of users? So this is where we specify all or only a subset. Current state, we are making it visible to all. So enable this particular checkbox. Move to step 4 by clicking next. And there's a default layout of policy. So layout is how basically the information is presented, the sequence of the fields, basically. So default layout is created as soon as a custom object is created in Salesforce. And do you want this particular field to be added to the layout of policy? The answer is yes. This is again true by default. So keep it as it is. And instead of clicking save, click save and new, because there are a couple of attributes that we're supposed to create, right? Now the next field, so subtype, again, bifurcation of the type. Again, it's a pick list, a list from which you can pick. And it's a single select pick list. That means only one value can be selected. You cannot select multiple values. So select single pick list. Select pick list as the data type, move to step 2. Specify the label as subtype. And again, we are entering values manually with each value separated by a new line. So these are the values: term plan, unit link plan, single premium, fire, theft, and regular. Now, after adding the values to the subtype field, we'll move to step 3. Step 3 and 4 are going to remain as it is. We are making the field visible. Now, there are two checkboxes, visible and read only. Let's try to understand the difference between these two. Now, this again is part of field level security. Field level as in at the level of the field, the security that we are defining. If you want the field to be visible and also editable, this is the box that you check. In case you want the field to be visible but not editable, as in there is a field, the sales rep should only be able to see the value of the field but should not be allowed to edit it. In that case, this checkbox called read only will also be enabled to make it read only. So make it visible to all and move to step 4. Step 4, ensure that it is added to the layout of policy. And again, click Save and New. The third field is the status field, the policy status. Again, it's a picklist field. So we'll select the data type as picklist. We'll move to step 2 and we'll specify the label name as status. Again, we are entering values with each value separated by line. Hina has already pasted the values. So the values are draft, active, expired, claimed, and surrendered. You can copy and paste. Move to step 3. Make it visible to all. Step 4, ensure that it is added to the layout of policy. And click Save and New. So we've created 3 attributes. The fourth one is the start date of the policy. So what should be the relevant data type? The relevant data type should be date.
Date.
So we are capturing the start date of the policy. So select the data type as date. Click Next. Specify the label. So the label is policy start date. We can also make a field required, as in from the field dimension. That means every time a policy record is created, users have to specify the start date of the policy. If they don't specify the start date, they won't be allowed to save the record in the database. So you can make it required via the dimension, and there are other ways to make it required, mandatory. Move to step 3, make it visible, editable by all. Move to step 4. Ensure it is added to the layout. So step 3 and 4 are repetitive. And click Save and New. Surrender date. Again, it is a date field. So we'll select the data type as date. We'll click the next button, move to step 2, specify the label name as surrendered date. Move to step 3, make it visible, editable by all. Step 4, ensure it is added to the layout of policy and click Save and New. The second last attribute is the coverage amount of the policy. Since we are, tracking the amount of the coverage, the relevant data type would be currency because we are calculating covering the amount, capturing the amount. So the data type would be currency. Select the data type currency, move to step 2, specify the field label as insurance coverage amount. Now length will specify the number of digits, as in, how much digits would you like to capture? It's up to you. Let's specify 10 as the length. In decimal places 0. We are not capturing the coverage amount in decimals. Step 3, again, making it visible, editable. And step 4, ensure it is added to the layout of policy. And again, click Save and New. And the last attribute is insurance period in months, so the number field. So select the data type number. Move to step 2, specify the label, insurance period in months. Length 2, 12 months a year. Decimal place is 0. Click next. Step 3, make it visible, editable by all. And step 4, ensure it is added to the layout of policy. And now you can click the save button. Now, if you've created a couple of attributes, and now let's test it by navigating to the insurance management app. So from the perspective of the end user, let's see how the record of the policy is going to look like. So 9 dots left hand side, you click on it and you type in insurance management. For the ease of navigation, you can open it in a separate tab. And now in the insurance management app, we will navigate to the policies tab. Click on policies. And now click the new button. So there you go. Couple of attributes that you've introduced: insurance type, which is a pick list field with the values health, motor vehicle, life, home. Subtype, depending on the type, insurance type, subtype can be selected: term plan, unit link plan, single premium, fire, theft, regular. So it's a single pick list. That means only one value can be selected. Status, again a pick list. Status of the policy, whether it is draft, active, expired, claim surrendered. The start date of the policy, data type is date, and it's a calendar. So you can select any date. Then surrender date, again a date field. Insurance coverage amount. So as you can see, you would be able to see the currency. Currency again would depend on the location, on your geography. For me, it is INR. It can be USD, Australian dollars. Depending on your location, it could be different. And insurance period in month, for example, this is valid for 24 months, so on and so forth. So I'm not creating any record. Now, we'll discuss a couple of more things and then we'll create a record of policy. So this is how we have not written a single piece of code. We have created a data table. We have introduced attributes as in columns on the data table. And now a record can be created by the end user. So this is how easy it is in Salesforce. As a Salesforce admin, you use the standard tools, available out of the box, and then you customize the platform, configure the platform. Now we have discussed what are fields. There are two types of fields, standard and custom. Standard is pre-built. Custom is anything that you create on your own. Data type would specify the type of data that you would like to, track on the object. For example, if you're planning to track date, it will be a date data type field. If you're planning to capture amount, you can create a field with the data type as currency, and so on and so forth. System audit fields are pre-built, available out of the box as soon as a custom object is created or any of the standard object. There are pre-built fields that are used for auditing purpose. Any sort of changes to the record. When was the record created? Who created the record? Who modified it? So again, from security perspective, system audit fields play a huge role. Then regarding the customization on the standard fields, as mentioned, you can only customize few aspects of the standard field. First of all, you cannot delete a standard field. Then, as in the help text, help text of the field can be updated. You can add values to the pick list field. You can remove values. You can activate, deactivate values. You can enable history tracking on the standard field, so on and so forth. If in case you have deleted a custom field, for example, on policy, if I delete insurance type field, there is an option. First of all, right inside, there is a drop down. If I click on it, I can click the delete button and this field would be deleted. Now, this operation is called soft delete, where the field would be available in the recycle bin, which is basically the deleted field section. And the admin developer would have the ability to restore it within 15 days. After 15 days, the field would be permanently deleted. Next is history tracking. So out of the box, on an object, 20 fields can be tracked. 20 field history can be tracked. For example, the business has stated that, hey, I want to track the history of changes on status, the type of the policy, the start date, and for example, today the status is draft, tomorrow someone from the insurance department team moves it to the claim status or surrendered status. As business, I want to track those sort of changes on the field value at the record level. So history tracking can be enabled. Again, from Object Manager, there is an option called Set History Tracking. So everyone, in the setup, if you have this open, navigate to policy, and in fields and relationship, you would be able to see this option, Set History Tracking. Click on it. I'm repeating the steps. You click on the gear icon, click Setup, then navigate to Object Manager. In the quick find box, we type in policy. If it's not already open, we click on policy and then we click fields and relationship. Now in fields and relationship, right inside, there is an option to track history on the field values. So we'll click on Set History Tracking. And now out of the box, Salesforce would allow us to track the history on 20 fields. So let's enable history tracking on insurance coverage amount, insurance type, status, owner change, start date, subtype, insurance period, etc. Now, how you can view the history of changes, we'll cover that in the next session. How you can basically, track the set of changes. Now, global picklist value set. Now, what is a global picklist value set? We were able to see this option when we were creating a picklist field, right, on an object. So this particular option would reduce the manual work at our end. Let's suppose the business has shared a requirement that, hey, we want to use this particular field status across multiple objects, account, contact, policy, etc. Now, instead of creating the same field manually, typing in the values of the same field again and again, we can create a global picklist value set. This value set will be referenced across object fields. For example, on account, a status with value draft, active, surrendered, so on and so forth needs to be used. And then the same field values needs to be used on account, contact, and policy and other custom objects. Instead of manually creating the same field on all the objects, I can create a picklist value set, and that same value set can be referenced on multiple object fields. Now, what it would do is not only it will reduce the manual work at your end, it will also help in maintaining consistent data. And let's suppose at a later point of time, if you want to update the field values, add or remove certain field values, you don't have to repeat the steps on all the object fields. You can make the change on the value set. And since the value set is referenced across object fields, the same is going to be presented. So the manual work is reduced by using a value set. An example of this is the company intends to use the same value of policy status, that is draft, active, expired, claimed, and surrendered, across different objects to achieve consistent reporting. So we'll use global value set and we'll update the status field so that the status field can be then referenced in any of the pick lists that we create in future. Now, there are two ways to go about it. First one is we can straight away promote a pick list field. For example, in this case, it is status. So status can be promoted to a value set, or we can create a value set directly from the home tab by clicking Picklist Value Set. So if you are planning to create a value set from scratch, you'll navigate to Picklist Value Set, you'll click the new button, you'll define the values, and then this value set can be referenced across Picklist fields. Otherwise, if you're planning to promote the same field or any of the field, which is a pick list, you can directly navigate to the object. So in this case, it is policy. And on policy, we are promoting status. So we'll navigate to the status field. And now we'll hit the edit button in order to promote it to a value set. When you click edit, there is a button called promote to global value set. Click on it. And now you specify the name of the value set. We'll keep the name as it is. The name of the value set would be status. And then click promote to global value set. Now the status field is now a global value set. What it means is now if I create a field, a pick list field on any of the objects, for example, account. I'm just demonstrating, no need for you guys to follow along. So for example, on account, I'm planning to create a same field status. So I'll navigate account in fields and relationship. I'm going to hit the new button. I'll select the data type as pick list. And now, instead of manually entering the values with each value separated by a new line, I can reference the global value set status. Now, down the line, if there are any sort of changes required on the status field, as an admin, as a developer, I will make the changes straight away in the picklist value set. And the same is going to reflect on all the object fields that are referencing this global value set. Next is field dependency. So in the context of the fields that we've created, if let's suppose the business wants to restrict, the values of a particular field based on the selection made in a particular pick list field, a sort of a dependency needs to be created. Out of the box, Salesforce gives you the ability to define the field dependency directly in the object manager. For example, on policy, there are two fields, right? Insurance type and subtype. Now, what is happening is the insurance agents, they are creating invalid combinations of policy. For example, if they're selecting motor vehicle, they are selecting the subtype as term plan, which does not make sense, right? So in order to ensure that valid combinations of type and subtype are created on the record, the business wants to impose some sort of restrictions, a dependency needs to be created between these two fields. So how we can create the dependency? We can create the dependency by navigating to the object manager. In the quick find box, we type in policy. Navigate to the policy object and click fields and relationship. Now, right inside, there is an option to define dependency. Now, before we start building on the dependency, let's understand the concept of controlling and dependent field. So controlling field is the field which controls the value of the dependent field. Dependent field values would be dependent on the controlling field values. For example, if the type of the insurance is health, the only subtype that should be available for selection should be regular or single premium. If we are selling life insurance, the subtype of the policy can be term plan, regular, single premium, or unit linked. If you're selling motor vehicle insurance, the subtype can be single premium or regular. If we are selling home insurance, the type can be fire or theft. So these are the valid combinations of type and subtype that we are trying to impose via field dependency. So which would be the controlling field? The controlling field would be type, and the dependent field would be subtype. And now we'll define the dependency by clicking this button, field dependency. Click the new button. And now we'll specify which one is the controlling field and which one is dependent. Please note, a controlling field can be a checkbox, standard or custom pick list. A dependent field would always be a pick list, be it single select or multi-select. So in controlling field, we'll select insurance type, because insurance type is going to control the behavior, the values of the dependent field, which is subtype. Click continue. And now we'll specify the dependency. So if the insurance type selected is health, what are the values of the subtype? It's regular and single premium. So what we'll do is we'll double click on regular, and then we'll double click on single premium to include these values in the dependency. For motor vehicle, it is again single premium and regular. So again, double click on these two values. For life, it is term plan, regular, single premium, and unit linked. And for home, the subtype can be fire or theft. Now click save. And let's navigate back to the insurance management tab. Refresh the tab and click on the policies tab. Now we'll create the first policy record by clicking the new button. Now what you would notice is subtype is grayed out. Why? Because it is dependent on insurance type selection. So if you select health, the subtype can be single premium or regular. If you select motor vehicle, again, the subtype can be single premium or regular. If you select life, the subtype can be term plan, unit link plan, single premium, regular. And for home, it is fire or theft. So I'm creating a health policy, the subtype of which is single premium. Status, let's suppose it is draft. Start date of the policy next month, February 1st. Surrender date is blank. The coverage amount of the policy, just a random number. And the period of coverage is 24 months. So you can just add the information, whatever makes sense to you, and click the save button. So what you would notice is policy number is automatically generated, PO001. The owner of the record is our user. Created by, last modified by, these are system audit fields. So you can see who created the record, when was it created. So the date and stamp of creation, and who last modified the record. Again, from security perspective, everything is being tracked. Now, this is the details of the policy. Left of details is the related tab. Since we have enabled notes and attachment, we can also, add notes attachment to the policy record. Let me quickly introduce this particular topic, which is very, very important, object relationships, the relationship between data tables in Salesforce. So primarily, there are two relationships, lookup and master detail. In order to understand this better, let's take an example. So there are two types of relationship that can be defined between data tables. One allows us to loosely, associate the objects, and the other one associates the object in a tightly coupled manner. So both these relationships will allow you to connect two data tables. Let's try to understand this with help of an example, warehouse and inventories, right? So these are two data tables, two objects, right? Custom objects created in Salesforce. Warehouse, custom object 1, inventories, custom object 2. Now, if let's suppose the business has requested you to create a relationship between these two data tables. Why? Because they want to track related information that, hey, if it's inventory, IN001, inventory 1, where is it stored? In which warehouse it is stored? In order to capture that information, you have to create the relationship between the data tables, right? Another example, Saasguru is an account and Pratik Siddesh is working for Saasguru, are the contacts. So there needs to be a relationship between account and contact data table, account and contact object, right? So this is the whole purpose of creating relationship. Now relationship, as mentioned, can be of two types. Loosely coupled, which is called a lookup relationship, where one object record is looking up to another object record for information that, hey, if it is inventory 001, this inventory is stored in the California warehouse. Another inventory IN002 is stored in Fresno warehouse, and so on and so forth. So inventory is looking up to warehouse for information. Now these two objects can also be, related by creating a master detail relationship. Now what's the difference between master detail and lookup? Lookup allows you to loosely couple the objects, as in inventory can be created in the system even without warehouse information. So I can create IN001 without specifying the warehouse in which it is stored. So that's loosely coupled. Master detail, on the other hand, would not allow you to create the inventory in the system without specifying the warehouse in which it is stored. So that's why it is called tightly coupled. Tightly coupled as in the child cannot exist without the parent. The child, the detail cannot exist without the master. Does that make sense? What is a master detail relationship? What's a lookup relationship? Both are relationship types that allow relating two data tables in Salesforce, but one allows you to loosely associate the objects. The other one is a tightly coupled relationship where the object record cannot exist without the master record in the system. Now, in order to understand this better, and let's take the example of contact policy, AG Insurance Company. You're helping out AG Insurance Company in managing their data in Salesforce. Now, what they have requested is that, hey, these policies that we are creating in the system, basically insurance agents are creating these policies. My insurance agent should not be allowed to create a policy record without specifying the contact for which the policy is created. For example, if PO001 needs to be created in the system, you have to specify for which contact are you creating the policy. If Sona is purchasing the policy, Sona is the contact. There should be a relationship between Sona's contact and policy record in the system. So what type of relationship are we planning to create between contact and policy? Is it lookup or is it master detail? So just pay attention to this statement. No policies in the system should be created without specifying the contact for which the policy is created. So policy cannot exist without the master, without the parent. So in this case, policy is what? Policy is the child or the detail record. And contact, data table, contact object is the parent, is the master. Now we have talked about lookup being a loosely coupled relationship, and it's a one-to-many relationship. One-to-many means one warehouse can have n number of inventories associated with it, right? Similarly, one contact can have n number of policies associated with it. For example, I'm Sona and I can purchase life insurance, health insurance, home insurance, so on and so forth, right? So one contact having n number of policies, many policies. That's why it is called one-to-many. The parent can have many records associated with it. Now, what's the other difference between lookup and master detail? The maximum number of lookups that can be created on an object is 40. That means if it's the inventory object, you can associate inventory with other 40 objects, other 40 data tables in Salesforce. So 40 is the maximum count. Whereas in the case of master detail, how many maximum parents can a child have? The answer is 2. Now, how you can remember it? Biologically, a child can have 2 parents, right? So remember it in the way that, hey, a parent can have as many children, but a child can have 2 masters, as in 2 parents biologically. So the maximum number supported is 2 for master detail. Next is cascade delete functionality is not possible in a lookup relationship. Now, what is a cascade delete functionality? Cascade delete functionality means if the master record is deleted, for example, California is the warehouse, and there are 20,000 inventories associated with California warehouse. If it is a lookup relationship, when you delete the California warehouse record, 20,000 inventories would still exist in the system. Whereas in the case of master detail, because master detail supports cascade delete functionality, if you delete the warehouse record, all the 20,000 inventories associated with warehouse California would also be deleted. So the child cannot exist without the master, and that's what cascade delete functionality is about. So if a contact is deleted, Sona's contact is deleted, all the associated policies against Sona's contact would also be deleted. Why? Because it's in a master data relationship. Next is roll-up summary. So rolling up the information, as in, how many policies are created against Sona's contact. If you want to roll up the values, aggregate, summarize the information on the master record, that is possible only in master detail relationship. You cannot create roll-up summaries out of the box on those objects which are associated via lookup. And the last one is sharing of the object. So whosoever owns the master object would have the ownership of the child object. And the sharing of the child will be controlled by the master object in a master detail relationship. Whereas in case of lookup, the sharing is not defined by the master record, by the parent record. We will complete this particular hands-on. We'll create a master detail relationship between contact is the master, and policy, which will be the child, the detail object. And then we'll also talk about many-to-many relationship. I'll give you guys an example of what a many-to-many relationship is. And if time permits, we are going to work upon the second business use case, that is to create a many-to-many relationship between contact and policy object. So now in order to create the relationship between contact and policy, now please remember, whether it's a lookup relationship or a master detail relationship, it's always created on the child object. For example, if inventory is looking up to warehouse for information, if you're supposed to create a lookup relationship between warehouse and inventory is looking up to warehouse for information, you're going to create the relationship on inventory, which is the child. Similarly, in master detail, you're going to create the relationship on the child object on the detail side. So since contact is the master, contact is the parent, and policy is the child, policy is the detail, we are going to create the relationship on policy. Now we'll navigate to Salesforce setup. The process is again the same. You navigate to setup by clicking the gear icon and clicking the setup page. And we click Object Manager. And then in the quick find box, we type in policy. Click on policy label and navigate to fields and relationship. So not only you can manage the fields on the data table via this option, you can also manage the relationship between the data tables. So there's a new button. If you click on new, you would find the option to create the relationship, whether it's a lookup or a master detail that you're planning to create. Since we are planning to create master detail, we'll select master detail relationship. Click next. And now we'll specify with which data table are we planning to associate the policy object. So in related to, the object would be contact. So type in contact and select the contact object. Click next. The field label, the relationship name is already specified. It's contact. Why? Because we have selected the data table as contact, the object as contact. Child relationship is policies. Why? Because one contact can have multiple policies associated with it. Then sharing setting can also be specified whether you would want to give read-write, read-only access to the users. Read-write as in allowing the users with at least read-write access to the master record to create, edit, or delete related records. Or read-only as in someone who has the read access to the master record having the ability to create, edit, or delete the detailed record. It's a master detail relationship. You can also give the end user the ability to reparent, as in, let's suppose on creation of the policy, someone has selected the contact as your record. So now, for example, my name has been selected as the contact record name while creating PO001. If this option is selected, the system would give you the ability to change the contact information on the policy created. If it is not enabled, the system won't not allow you to create to change the contact information on the policy created. Move to step 4. Now, what you would notice is step 4, the system does not give me the option to restrict the visibility or change the visibility. I cannot make this field, non-editable because it's a master detail relationship. The master record has to be specified. Without the master record, the child would not exist. So you cannot create a policy without the master, which is the contact. You have to specify if you're creating a policy, life insurance policy, against which contact are you creating the policy. So you cannot make this non-editable. This is required by default. Previous step, we have kept the information as it is. Field label is contact, field name is contact. Step 4, we cannot make any changes because it's a master detail. It's a tightly coupled relationship. It is required by default. We move to step 5. Again, what we would notice is it's added to the layout of the policy. Why? Because it's a tightly coupled relationship. And when I move to the next step, a related list of policies will be added to contact. Why? Because one too many. One contact can have n number of policies. Now, when I click the save button, the system will throw an error. You cannot create a new master detail relationship on an existing custom object if records already exist. You must first create a lookup relationship, populate the lookup field with data in all records, and then change the relationship type to master detail. So it's not just about, the records availability on the object. It's about the missing information of the parent. On this PO001, do you see any reference of contact the master? So that's why the system won't allow us to create a master detail relationship on an object, on which there are records. And on those records, since there is no master information, it's a tightly coupled, relationship. So it's contradicting the fact that you're trying to create a tightly coupled relationship, and on these records, the master information is missing. So what the system is suggesting us to do is that, hey, if there are records available, since it's a tightly coupled relationship, you can create a lookup on this particular object. You populate the lookup on policy, you specify the association between policy and contact, and then you can convert the relationship type to master detail. So again, we'll click fields and relationship. We'll click the new button and we'll select the relationship type as lookup. So select the relationship type, step 1 as lookup. Now related to would be contact. If the system didn't throw an error, it is probably because there are no records on policy. While creating the master detail, if there are no records on policy, the system would allow you to create a master detail relationship between policy and contact. So related to is contact, click next. Field label is contact, field name is contact, child relationship name is policies, plural label. Move to step 4. Now, I hope all of you can see the difference. Since it's a loosely coupled relationship, you can control the visibility, editability of this particular relationship, whether this should be accessible by all the users in the system, subset of users, or subset of users in the system. Why? Because it's a loosely coupled relationship. Let's make it visible to all. Move to step 5. Again, policy layout. You would see that now it is not grayed out. Why? Because it's a loosely coupled relationship. We can add it to the layout or remove it from the layout. Move to step 6. Related list would be as it is. Against contact, policies related list will be added. Again, the concept of one to many. One contact can have n number of policies associated with it. And now we'll click the save button. And a relationship has been defined between the contact object and the policy object. So policy is looking up to contact for information. Now we'll navigate to the insurance management tab. After creating the relationship, you can click on the 9 dots, type in insurance management, navigate to the insurance management tab. Click on contacts. First of all, we'll create a contact record for our user. So click on contacts tab, click new. Just type in your first name and last name. Last name is required for creating a contact record in the system. And click save. Now again, Sona's contact, your contact record. What you would notice in the related list, in the related tab, policies, the related list has been added, via which you can associate as many policies, against the contact record. So Sona can purchase n number of policies, and straight away from Sona's contact, you can create n number of policies. Next, we navigate to the policies tab. PO001 is already created. At least in my system, there's only one policy. So I'll navigate to the policy record, PO001. And now there is a new lookup field added to the layout of policy, which is called contact. So there's a lookup relationship current state between contact and policy data table. So I can populate that, hey, this PO001 policy 001 is created for my user. So you can make a selection. You can also create a new contact. You can select an existing contact record. I'm selecting my contact record on the policy. And this is how we define the relationship between data tables. Just to double check, I have clicked on policies tab again, and I'll click on the recently viewed list view. If I click on all, there is only one policy, right? And I have specified the contact person information on PO001. So what I can do next is I can convert this lookup relationship to a master detail. So we'll navigate back to Salesforce Setup. Click the gear icon, click Setup. Object Manager, then click Policies, and then click Fields and Relationship. Now the next step is to convert this relationship type to master detail. So in Salesforce Setup page, Object Manager, we navigate to Policy, click Fields and Relationship, and now navigate to Contact. We are converting lookup to master detail. Navigate to the contact lookup. We'll click the edit button. And now we'll change the field type by clicking this button, change field type. And select master detail. Click next. Keep the information as it is and click save. So in step 2, right inside where you see save, click on it. Now the data type has been updated to master detail. Contact is the master of policy. Now, how can I validate this? I'm navigating back to the insurance management tab. We'll click on policies tab. And now when I click the new button, what I would notice is contact is now represented, there's an asterisk, red asterisk in front of contact. If I try to save the record, the system would throw an error. Please review the following fields. Complete this field. Why? Because policy now cannot exist without the master. You have to specify for which contact are you creating this policy. So I'm just creating the second policy record with random details. And contact, again, I'm selecting my contact record. Only when I select the contact record, the system would allow me to save the policy. And ownership is controlled by the parent, as in the master contact record. So if I navigate to contact and open my contact record in related, what I would find is multiple policies associated with my contact record. And that is why we call it one-to-many. So we have covered master detail lookup relationship. The third type of relationship that can be defined between two objects is a many-to-many relationship. Now let's try to understand this with help of an example. Again, contacts and fields. One contact can have n number of policies, right? Sona can purchase multiple policies from SG Insurance Company. Similarly, one policy can also be associated with multiple contacts. The question is why? One contact can be associated with multiple policies. Example of this is you can purchase as many policies from, from the insurance provider, right? Similarly, one policy can have n number of holders of the policy, one being the primary holder, and the other folks can be the secondary holder of the policy. For example, if my employer, Saasguru, provides me with, insurance benefit, I can also include my parents, in the same policy. The same policy can cover my parents as well. So my parents are now the secondary holder of the policy, while I am the primary holder of the policy. So one policy associated with many policy holders. So in order to create many-to-many relationship, a custom object is created. And for it to function as a junction, a bridge, two master detail relationship needs to be introduced on the junction. The first master would be with the contact object. So policy holder and contact. Let's suppose we are introducing a custom object called policy holder. For it to act as a junction, we'll create a master detail relationship on policy holder. The master would be contact. The second master detail relationship would be created between policy and policy holder. And again, policy holder would be the child, the detail. So the first step that we're going to do as part of this exercise will be to introduce the custom object. We'll repeat the same steps of creation of the object. And then on the object, we are going to define the relationships. And after creating the relationships, the tab, the object, it will be visible on the layout. Okay, so now we'll first create the junction, as in create the object that will serve as the junction, the bridge. So in Salesforce setup, navigate to Object Manager and click on this button Create and click Custom Object. So first of all, since there is no policyholder object, we are first going to introduce the object and then we'll convert it to a junction object. The label name of this is policy holder, the holder of the policy. You can name it anything. Just to make sense, we are naming it policy holder. The plural label is policy holders because there can be multiple holders of the policy. Now, record name, we'll keep it as it is. The record name would be the first column that we're introducing on this object is policy holder name. The data type is text. Optional features, enable all the optional features on this object, junction object. Allow search, add notes. And this one is optional. If you want to create a custom tab for this particular object, you can do so. Otherwise, it's not required. The reason is simple. Since this is going to act as a junction, you can access it from the contact object record or from the policy object record. So this is optional, but let's create a tab for it by enabling this particular checkbox. Click Save. And now you can select any tab style. Move to step 2. Keep the visibility on for all the users. And next step, deselect include tab and just include it in the last application, which is insurance management. And now you can hit the save button. Now the object policy holder has been introduced. What are the next steps for it to act as a junction between contact and policy data table? So two master detail relationship needs to be created on policy holder. As soon as you create two master detail on an object, it starts acting as a junction, as a bridge. So we'll repeat the same steps of creating master detail on policy holder object. We navigate to fields and relationship. And one by one, you'll create the relationships. So click New, select Master Detail, click Next. The first master detail that we're creating is with contact. Click Next. Field label is contact, field name is contact, child relationship name is policy holders. So we're keeping information as it is. and we are moving to step 4. Step 4, visibility is controlled by the system. Since it's a master detail, tightly coupled relationship, it is visible by default. Step 5, it is added to the layout of policy holder. And step 6, the related list on the contact would be policy holders. And instead of clicking save, we are going to click save and new to create the second master detail with policies. So select the relationship type as master detail again. Related to now is policies. So select policy as the data table, as the object. Click next. Step 3, keep the information as it is. Move to step 4. Then step 5. And in step 6, now you can hit the save button. Now we have converted this particular object to a junction object. What's a junction object? A junction object is a bridge between two data tables that allows the users to create many-to-many relationship. So the first master is with contact, the second master is with policy. Now, before we test this in the insurance management tab, let's introduce an identifier to identify the primary and the secondary holder of the policy. So we'll click the new button and we'll create an identifier is primary. A Boolean field, a checkbox field, the value of the checkbox can be yes or no, true or false. So select the data type as checkbox. Click next. And specify the label name as is primary question mark. So this identifier will help the business team to track whether the holder of the policy is primary or not. Click next, move to step 3, make it visible, editable by all the users in the system. And move to step 4, where you can save the changes. And now we can test this in the insurance management tab. So navigate to the insurance management tab, refresh the browser. What you would notice is policy holders, the tab has been introduced. Now you can create the relationship many-to-many directly from this tab. You can also create the relationship from contact or from policy. For example, against Sona's contact, there are two policies, PO001, right? If I want to specify the holders against this same policy, PO001, against Sona's contact, I can navigate to the record, and in related, I can hit the new button. And now I can specify that, hey, my mom is the secondary holder of the policy, and again, it is associated with PO001. Then I click new again. I'm creating another policyholder record. So you can just type in your spouse name, your family member's name, specify the same policy, PO001, and since they are the secondary holder of the policy, I am not, marking this particular checkbox as true. They are the secondary holder of the policy. And my name, and since I am the primary holder of the policy, against PO001. I'm marking this checkbox true. Is primary? Yes. So this is how you can create many-to-many relationship on the policy record PO001. You can see the holder information in the related section that, hey, PO001 is associated with 3 holders of the policy. So you can create it from the contact tab or the policy tab or the policy holder tab. And it's a way for you to associate, one contact with multiple policy and similarly one policy with multiple contacts. So now since there are a couple of topics left for us to cover, we are going to cover these remaining topics, which is roll-up summaries and formula fields, 2 remaining topics from today's session, in order to ensure that we are staying on track.